up a three. And goal!
Bearcat Blitz. Happy Monday to everybody. Welcome into another edition of the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us there. Please subscribe, rate, and review. Russ Eltman, your host, alongside my co-host Neil Meyer. Russ Eltman of Cincinnati Bearcats on SI, and Neil from Cincinnati's rival Cincinnati site, thefrontofficenews.com. We have a very fun show ready to roll for you all, starting with a great interview, expecting a lot of fun things with head Cincinnati women's basketball coach Katrina Merriweather, coming on the show to discuss the program, them just really excelling in their second year under her watch. Already more conference wins this season than they had last year. Got the big recruiting class dialed in for 2025. A lot of exciting things happening around Cincinnati Bearcats women's basketball. And then we'll get into the disappointing defeat at the hands of Iowa State on Saturday for the men's team, plus a preview of the West Virginia battle on Wednesday night. Should be a lot of fun. But first, I want to tell you all about Bet Online. It's the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC. Bet Online continues to be your number one sports betting source, from every three-pointer to hat trick. Bet Online has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online, the game starts here. And Neil, will go ahead and bring on Katrina now to join the program. Katrina, thank you so much for taking the time this week out of, I'm sure, a busy schedule in the middle of the season, winding down conference play to chat with us on Bearcat Blitz. We appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you having me.
So, Katrina, got 4 games left in the regular season. You guys have excelled pretty well in the Big 12 compared to last season. 6-8 already, sitting right in the middle of the pack of the conference standings, with the chance to move up and ultimately get out of that first day of the conference tournament slate with some more wins this season. What do you think has been the biggest reason for the jump up in wins and overall level of play from your squad this season compared to what I'm sure was a whirlwind first year of your campaign?
I think we have to start with the continuity of our staff. I think that when you are able to retain really good people that are connected, not just in the university and the community, but have built relationships with our players, I think that matters. The next thing would be Jillian Hayes coming back. Right. When you have an opportunity to coach a fifth year who's been in one jersey, I think that speaks volumes for her commitment, again, not just to the program, but to the city. She plays with a lot of pride, and I think that that's contagious. And if I had to choose a third thing, it's Tanea Hilton. We get this point guard that helps us take care of the ball, helps us get into our offense, that plays with great pace, great speed, another offensive threat that teams have to worry about. So everyone can't just focus on Jill. And then I think that having Tanea has given the other players an opportunity to play in their natural positions.
And then, Coach, you mentioned Jillian. Talk about how special of a career she's obviously had. She leads the program in free throws, games played with 138, 1,500 points, 1,000 rebounds. Just talk about her legacy and the impact she has made on this basketball program.
One thing I like to talk about the most is the best ability is availability. And Jill's always available. Doesn't matter if she is tired, she's hurt, if she's banged up, if she's not feeling well, Jill always practices. And she practices at a pace and a level that prepares her for the game. And a lot of times that's very difficult for your leading scorer, leading rebounder, and your best player to do. Right? Is sometimes they just want to take a break. Sometimes they want less reps. Sometimes they just want to preserve themselves for games. And that's not Jill's mentality. It is every drill, every rep she can get in so that she can get prepared to play. And I think that's what allows her to perform that way. She's obviously tough and skilled, and I always give her a hard time about her unique skill set. I tell her she's a 4.5, -5, a true tweener. She's got this incredible post game, but she's a little undersized, especially in this league. And then she's very agile, and so she could run the floor hard and that sort of thing. So it's been a pleasure coaching her. And she just loves Cincinnati. And I think that that's something she wakes up with every day, and no one has to get her hyped up to play.
And then obviously, too, talking about Jillian, just landed your highest rating recruiting class in program history. How big is it the importance of selling Cincinnati with a woman like Jillian Hayes and what she's been able to do here? Is that a selling point for you on the recruiting trail, and say, hey, this is what Jillian has done here at Cincinnati. This is a route that you could maybe take in the future as well?
I think it helps with the Alexander, who's also embedded in the city. Dee's been doing camps and is visible to the youth in the area, and she does community service and has for years. So sure, I think that helps. But what we try to get everybody to understand as we are recruiting the other 4 players is Cincinnati can be home to anyone. And it's the people that make a place, and we get a lot of compliments about this feeling like home away from home, and it has really helped us. So I think it's twofold. I think the local kids can see they can have the impact that Jill has, but I also think kids from other states think that they could come here and make Cincinnati home as well.
You guys are 6-8 this season, Coach Merriweather, and got 4 games left. At Texas Tech, home against Utah, at Oklahoma State, home against West Virginia. A pair of home games, a pair of road games. What are kind of the biggest keys, do you think, to having success over this 4-game run and trying to get to ultimately? You'd love to get to 10-8 on the season and be fully over 500, but at least trying to mine out a 500 record in the Big 12 in your second season. That would obviously be a very strong accomplishment.
No, absolutely. For us, it's just going to be staying healthy. And I think it's the same for everyone. When you take a look at the top of our conference, those are the teams that have had the least amount of injuries, right? That have been able to consistently start the same 5 players. And we know that we're having to pivot a lot, especially after we lost Allianz. And, sometimes you don't know the impact of a player. We knew she rebounded. We knew she did all these things, but really it's her presence defensively that I feel like we're missing. And Delaney, as a sophomore, has stepped up and just played 30 minutes against West Virginia and gave us some really good time. So if we can just not lose anyone else for the remainder of the 4 games, I think that would be helpful. But it's always going to be rebounding the ball and taking care of the ball. If we can figure out how to secure defensive rebounds, we can push in transition to get some easy buckets. If we can be aggressive and rebound offensively, we can get some second chance opportunities. And both are hard to do if you don't have the ball. So those are always our 2 emphases: is rebound the ball and taking care of the ball.
Do you think rebounding, has that been the biggest reason why the offense has struggled a little bit over the past 4 games?
I do think that doesn't help. I told Delaney, like, putting her in the game, even though she doesn't have as much experience as she's much younger than an Allianz, her height alone attracts attention. Well, ever since she's been on the floor heavy minutes, Jill has gotten these doubles, and it's very difficult for her to get these rebounds when she's the only one people are focused on rebounding the ball. So sometimes things that people do don't show up on stat sheets. So there is no column for Delaney for that. But what she is doing is she's taking people's attention away, because she can rebound and get a putback. She can catch the ball and shoot a quick turn layup. So I do think that, and obviously we just need to shoot the ball better, and no one gets more disappointed in that than a player, who works on it and gets in the gym. So we're going to stay positive, let them know that we still believe in them, and stress the importance of teammates believing in each other.
And then, Coach, too, obviously a very unique and inspiring story about this team is Abby Holtman's journey to Cincinnati. Just talk about that journey a little bit and how exciting it is to see her excel at the Division I level.
Well, it's really personal for a lot of us. Abby Jump and Abby Owens have known Abby since she was very young. Brought her to camp in 7th grade when I was at Wright State, and I'm pretty sure that I were her first Division I offer at Wright State. And then we recruited her at Memphis. We went there, and then we're fortunate enough for her to be here when we got here. Her story is, it's encouraging. I think when sometimes people have adversity or obstacles, you simply have 2 decisions: you push through them or you quit. And Abby Holtman has 0 quit in her. And I think that is something that is valued by our team, is valued by our coaching staff. And I know she's really proud of what she's been able to do too, and so are we.
talking with UC head women's basketball coach Katrina Merriweather here on Bearcat Blitz. I'm your host, Russ Heltman. Of course, joined as always by my co-host, Neil Meyer. Katrina, what you talked about the staff retention and how important that was from year 1 to year 2. Would you say that's the biggest kind of thing to key in on as you continue your growth in this position, is trying to retain that staff for as long as possible? And obviously it's brought great fruit in terms of the recruiting class just jumping up, the recruiting acumen jumping up over the first couple of years. Is that kind of the biggest key to continuing what you hope is a steady standard rise in the results from this program?
Absolutely. And I think that, if I'm being honest, they're the easiest ones to recruit, right? All staff members want to do is be appreciated. They want to be developed. So we alternate job responsibilities. We try to flip things around so everyone gets exposed to different areas. So they always feel like they're growing, so that they don't have to go to other places to get opportunities. And I've been fortunate to go to 3 different levels in the last few years too. And I think that has helped with retention. I don't know if I'm still holding on to this staff if I'm not at Cincinnati. I almost lost them in the transition from Wright State to Memphis because people were trying to hire them to be head coaches and, recruiting coordinators and things of that nature. So I know it's the most important thing. Who I'm surrounded by every day as a head coach with all my responsibilities, who these kids have and that they're surrounded by every day, and the fact that they have great chemistry. If you remove me out the equation, this staff has a great relationship, and that's fun for me to know and see as a leader. And I always say, if I'm doing anything right, I know it's this group of people that I've hired.
Who would you say is a kind of Julian Hayes obviously gets all the press, but who is someone, and also Tanae Hilton as well, but who is someone who's kind of an underrated, under-discussed player that you would say has been a huge kind of connecting point or a skeleton key, so to speak, for the rising success this season compared to last?
Yeah, it's so interesting when you say that, and I think week to week it's been different. I mean, initially it's always Reagan Jackson, right? Reagan Jackson has this killer competitive spirit that I don't know is anything that you can teach. I do think that you're born with that. She just wants to be great. And she stays in the gym all the time, and she does everything she can to be a good teammate. She's extremely disappointing when she doesn't shoot the ball well. We are working with her to understand her value defensively and all the different things that she could do. I thought she did a good job rebounding the ball against West Virginia. So I think Reagan is the first one that comes to mind, but I always refer to Bree Byers as our glue. I can play her at the 3, the 4. If you notice, she played a couple of possessions at the point guard, and I think she's just that versatile. I think she has a high basketball IQ. I got a bunch of coaches' kids on this team, and so sometimes we have some overthinkers, and I wish they would play a little more instinctive. But it's because they're good kids. Like, they're good kids, and they want to win, and they want to do great. I mentioned Delaney earlier. You're going to see Daly's minutes increase here. And then you can't forget Chloe, who went out against West Virginia. So she probably would have been the second person that I saw or mentioned. Her energy, her pace. Chloe is the kid that we recruited that is an indicator of the direction that we're headed. Like, that's how fast we're going to be across the board. That's how aggressive we're going to attack the basket. That's how much we're going to push in transition. So I think the addition of Chloe obviously has helped us considerably too.
And then, Coach, too, you speak of Chloe, man, how important is it in terms of her growth to have a woman like Tanaya lead this program and kind of take her under her wing there, especially during her freshman season?
Yeah, I think that what Tanaya has done for us is really helped people get the importance of pace. Because she plays so hard, so fast, as soon as the ball touches her hands. And we have tried to slow her down a bit so that the game will slow down for her, but she has one gear. And I think it's awesome when her and Chloe are on the floor together. And then I think what it does for Ari Jackson is it helps her pick her pace up. And sometimes when Ari is playing, you're like, man, Ari can do more. Ari could do more, and Ari can do more. And I think that she does when she's on the floor with people who play really fast. And so it's just been a trickle down effect for me, where I see that we are just playing harder with great pace, where we are taking more pride defensively because Tanaya can heat the ball up, on the backcourt. And I think your teams feel that energy. And that's why I call today our engine. A car doesn't run without its engine, and I think that that's part of while we've had a jump, is everybody's just really bought in, guys, about what we're doing in their role, and they know how important they are, whether they play 5 minutes or they play 35 minutes, that we all need each other in order to excel in this league.
And then you talk about Reagan Jackson too a little bit. Obviously, we have heard how she lives in the gym basically. Wes Miller kind of has joked around with some of us that he has had to restrict people from getting workouts in so they're not overworking themselves throughout the season. Has that been something you have to consider, knowing her work ethic?
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to tell a teenager about tendonitis, like if you keep doing this, by the time you're a senior, like you're just not going to feel good. And she listens and she stays, Jess does a tremendous job. Our trainer, the taking care of all the nicks and the bruises and the bumps and the soreness. And I know she stays in there a lot. Tasha, our performance coach, is always in their ear about mobility, stretching, injury prevention. And I think the whole team, we have Elise who does their nutrition and make sure that every shake she makes or that they drink it, because sometimes as a player, I can recall picking up those things and just kind of walking out because I didn't like the way they taste, or I didn't believe that they would help me. And I think that our performance staff does a tremendous job making sure that our young women are taking care of themselves.
Whole staff doing their best to get UC women's basketball to the highest level possible and on the upswing, that's for sure, compared to year one and year two of the Katrina Merriweather era. Katrina, thank you so much for your time on this week's Bearcat Blitz. We appreciate it. And everybody, please check them out on Sunday at 2 p.m., the next home game against Utah, and then one more home game against currently number 18, West Virginia, on March 1st at 2 p.m. as well. Really appreciate your time, Katrina, on this week's Bearcat Blitz.
No,
yeah, thanks for coming on, Coach.
No, I appreciate y'all. Have a good one.
Awesome stuff from Katrina right there. The program, Neil, just on the upswing, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. And she mentioned Chloe Mann, the kind of the Trojan horse, the first kind of entry into her acumen as a recruiter for her first big recruit, and obviously going to be adding two huge talents this coming season. When you think about D. Alexander and Kalia, I think I got this right, Divilisi, both manning the backcourt, and Neil, seeming like Katrina has a very strong acumen for bringing in guard talent to this program.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Russ, too, the biggest thing when you watch Chloe Mann throughout her high school tape and throughout her recruitment was she can really push the tempo. She was a track runner as well, so she's really wanting to push the speed. But it's going to be exciting to watch her in the near future play alongside a D. Alexander and a Kayla Divilisi as well. Two kind of guards there that can really do so much. And things are going to be trending in the upward direction. And it's going at a fast rate for Cincinnati's women basketball. And I mean, you look at the success from year 1 to year 2 in the Big 12, things are trending in the upward direction. And next year is going to be a very exciting time for Katrina Merriweather and this staff as well.
Yeah, we'll see if they can get to 500 or better in Big 12 play. Very, very big storyline to watch the rest of the season. Big storylines from the Iowa State loss on Saturday afternoon for the men, 81-70. Neil and I will have you covered on that recap after this break, and then get to a huge, huge, huge game for Cincinnati's NCAA tournament chances on Wednesday night against West Virginia. All that coming up on Bearcat Blitz. Neil, UC goes down to Iowa State 81-70. I unfortunately moved to 20-5 on my season record game predictions so far this campaign. Bearcats 81-70 loss. Obviously, the fans and everybody kind of keying in on the foul discrepancy in this game, with Iowa State picking up a total of just 13 fouls to Cincinnati's 23, a Cincinnati team that was, as we mentioned in the preview, one of the best fouling teams in the conference entering this game, hovering around 13.4 fouls per game. But to me, that was not why they lost the game. They got destroyed on the boards 37-19. And Neil, once again, they didn't have really anybody that could match the scoring prowess or come close to the consistency scoring wise of Jizzle James, who becomes the first Bearcat noted by play-by-play man Dan Horde to score 24-plus points in 3 consecutive games since Deontay Vaughn back in 2008, but they fall by 11 points nonetheless.
Yeah, Russ, and I know a lot of people are going to kind of talk about this game when, in terms of talking about this game, the first thing people are going to see is the foul discrepancy in this one. Obviously, that does play a factor when you see a team shoot 30 free throws compared to just 11, but things happen outside of that. You can't blame that on the refs. I mean, there were some bad calls. I don't think Jizzle James' 4th or 5th foul actually happened. However, when you lose the
fifth one
board,
was crazy. I mean, he
wasn't even near the play,
wild.
but when you look down and you see you got out rebounded 37-19, 12-5 on the offensive rebounds, that's going to be something you really hone in on too, because Russ, you look down at it, there was 3 possessions where Iowa State had 2 or 3 offensive rebounds that kept possessions alive. Just the inability to kind of box out and secure those rebounds in a game like this on the road, when you know you're heading into a team like Iowa State, who is 30-1 at home over the last 2 years, you're going to have to snag every rebound that you possibly can in that aspect. So that was the difference maker in this one. And then obviously you look down, you see outscored 31-9 in terms of bench points. That's a difference maker as well. But overall for Cincinnati, your defense kind of did its job. You forced Iowa State to 18 turnovers, but off those turnovers, you were only able to get 13 points. You would like to see that number up there closer to the 20 mark. But overall, I thought this was a game Cincinnati definitely was in right there down to the wire. And I know a lot of people are talking about it, Russ, on social media or whatnot, but I like the technical foul on Wes Miller at that. He showed some fire, he showed some passion, and he had every right to. So Day Thomas got completely hacked, no call, but just unfortunately, they weren't unable to respond after that moment. That sparked a 7-0 Iowa State run, and that's when things kind of took off for Iowa State. But overall, the officiating, Russ, before I hand it back to you, was atrocious in this game. I mean, poor Josh Reed, the quietest guy on the team, gets a technical foul for missing or getting a deflection, going into the scorer's board and slapping the scorer's table. I think you and I would have done the same thing in that situation where you slap.
How is that a technical? Like, I don't understand that at all.
Right. That's just, hey, I can be more aggressive. That could be a ball where I can intercept it and go the other way. So, I mean, overall, I thought the officiating was horrendous in this one, but you can't blame it on that. Cincinnati got murdered on the boards. And, I mean, you look down, Russ, just 19 total rebounds. Dylan Mitchell had 5. Aziz Bandego only had 3. You got to have more production from those guys, especially on the boards.
Yeah, and I think Keegan Nickerson noted this in his Bearcat Journal recap that it was, I think, the fewest rebounds in a game for a Cincinnati team since 2014 or something like that. It had been almost 10 years, over 10 years, since they had 19 or fewer rebounds in a contest. So it's just, it can't happen. You unfortunately lose Arrington Page in this game, and that caused Aziz Bandego to have to play massive minutes, 32 minutes. It's just not something you want to see him have to do consistently. And he got kind of bullied around with his smaller size up against the beefier front court of Iowa State. Only 3 rebounds for Bandego, despite putting up a nice offensive outing, 4 of 5 from the field and 2 of 2 from the free throw line. You don't get much out of Tyler Betsy, just 2 points and 19 minutes. He did, though, play solid defense, and he was a positive plus-minus in this game. And then Dan Skillings, I mean, he has completely fallen off a cliff. You know, this was arguably the worst game I've ever seen Dan Skillings play, given where he is in his timeline as a player and what they need from him at this point in the season. 1 point, 0 for 3 shooting. He took like a mid-range jump shot that was absolutely egregious. Missed all of his threes. Both of his threes was a -10 in 14 minutes, 2 turnovers. He had a negative game score in 14 minutes. That is really hard to do. Really hard to do. It's been a massive issue with Dan Skillings' play over the last few weeks, and it's really hindering the once thought of to be strong depth out of this Bearcats team. Depth, Neil, that as we get into the preview of West Virginia, who knows if they're going to have Arrington Page with him not playing at all in that game. Has not
seen Lukosius as well. You can't forget about that. He gets banged up with the shoulder injury as well.
And Seamoss, I don't think, played the final 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah,
Arrington Page didn't even log a full minute. So if those guys can't go on Wednesday against West Virginia, the hounding defense of West Virginia, it's going to be very hard to log a win and find a way to 5-1 down the stretch, Neil, which everybody's seemingly talking about. Like, oh, the Bearcats are still fully in it. They're still fully got a chance to make the NCAA tournament. They just got to go 5-1 down the stretch, something that they've never done in any portion of Big 12 play in the Wes Miller era. They've never put together a 5-game win mark in 6 games span in any portion of Big 12 play over the 31 plus 32 plus games that they've played so far in the Big 12 in the Wes Miller era. So time running out on the season for Cincinnati, in a season that is most likely headed towards an NIT berth unless they can pull off a massive win stretch over the next few weeks. We'll get to that in a quick preview of West Virginia after these messages on Bearcat Blitz. Neil headed to West Virginia on Wednesday, back-to-back road games for Cincinnati, a spot that has not treated them very well in the Big 12 slate under Wes Miller. They just have struggled when they have to go back-to-back on the road, and they have to get a win here, essentially. You basically have to win this game to realistically have a shot at that 5-1 finish, like I just talked about, a 5-1 finish that they really, really need because, Neil, they are now 0-9. Excuse me, 1-9, back to 1-9. They were 0-10 in quad 1 games heading into Sunday, and now they are back to 1-9 in quad 1 games, barely, because UCF has creeped back up to 75th in the net rankings. So that means that road contest, which you get a quad 1 status for those when you play teams between 1st and 75th in the net rankings on the road, is now a quad 1 victory. They need more of those, Neil, and this would definitely be a quad 1 victory and be affirmed for one, I would say, for the rest of the season, unless West Virginia had an epic collapse and didn't win again. 44th in the net, West Virginia is entering this contest. I believe they are, 44th in the net, 46th in KenPom, while Cincinnati is 45th in the net and 54th on KenPom entering this contest. They got punked by West Virginia a couple weeks ago at home, 63-50, in what was the most lifeless, worst outing in a conference game I've seen in the Wes Miller era. They have to respond better in this one, and they have to respond with a victory, in my opinion, to have a realistic chance of making the NCAA tournament, because you're not going on the road with how this team has played and beating Houston in a couple of weeks. And you still need to beat Baylor at home, and you likely have to also take care of Oklahoma State, and who else do they have on the schedule? Kansas State and TCU, both of those games at home in the hovering between 70 and 76 in the net rankings are TCU and Kansas State. So, Neil, 27% chance to win this game on Bart Torvik. Bart Torvik predicts West Virginia to win 64-59 in a series that's tied 12-12 all time. And the game airs on ESPN2 at 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. Can someone step up and help Jizzle James? Can someone do it? It's been Josh Reed and Day Thomas of late. Reed hit some threes in the game against Iowa State, but you can't really rely on him to be a consistent offensive force. More so rely on him to be a consistent defensive force, which he has been, and he might be, Neil, entering the starting lineup if Simas Lukosius cannot give it a go on Wednesday. That's the biggest storyline I'm watching, is those injuries and whether anyone can step up to match the scoring of Jizzle James. Not match the scoring, but shoot 50 plus or 40 plus % on 6+ shots. Can anyone be semi-efficient on a higher shot diet than you have normally seen from this team over the last few weeks? Dylan Mitchell hasn't been there. You'd think it would have been Dan Skillings entering the season. He's been completely no-showing over the last few weeks and has cratered like Victor Locken cratered in the back half of the season last year. It's happened once again for a go-to player on Wes Miller's roster. Neil, they need somebody to step up against what is one of the best defenses in the country, 18th in adjusted defensive efficiency. And Neil, a team that is likely not going to let Cincinnati shoot the ball like they have over the past few games, 10+ threes in 3 consecutive games for Cincinnati. But West Virginia allows just 29% from deep in conference play this season. That's second in the Big 12. And it's something that they're, I'm sure, keying in on, especially if Simas Lukosius can't go, a guy who has contributed a good chunk of those threes over the past 3 games.
Yeah, Russ, and two, you mentioned this matchup a few weeks ago. The biggest thing for Cincinnati is you have to find a way to not only contain Javon Small, but stop Joseph Yusefu too, who went in 15 minutes in the first matchup for Yusefu. He had 16 points, a perfect 6 for 6 from the field, 4-4 from behind the arc. And you want to know what he was shooting from behind the arc entering that game, Russ? 26% from 3 entering that game. So Cincinnati has got to find a way to come out and be aggressive versus West Virginia. And the player I'm looking forward to watching, Russ, if Simas Lukosius isn't able to go, Rayvon Griffith had a huge 7 points in 12 minutes versus West Virginia a couple weeks ago. Could this be another game where he comes off the bench and provides that great spark of energy that they need if Cincinnati does fall shorthanded in this one? But they have to find some production outside of Jizzle James, because Russ, Jizzle James is on a tear right now. And I don't think many people are kind of realizing what kind of tear it is. They're starting to see it, but he's capable of getting 20 points a night. And Cincinnati has needed an alpha to step up there and say, let me put the team on my back. Here we go. And Jizzle James has been that way for the last 2.5 weeks. But Russ, they have to find a way in this one. If Arrington Page isn't able to go, they have to find a way to crash the boards. If that means they play small, play Dylan Mitchell at the 5, kind of roll with the 4 guard, 3 wing kind of aspect, they have to find a way to make an impact here in this game. And especially being on the road, it's not going to be an easy one. If West Virginia plays like how they played on Saturday versus Baylor, where they went to overtime and lost at the buzzer, it's going to be a hard-fought match on Wednesday night. But Cincinnati's got to dig deep here. If they are shorthanded, which we won't know for sure yet until closer to game day, but they got to dig deep. It's now or never for Cincinnati. It's the last stretch here. People are mentioning, Russ, 5-1 gets you kind of into that spot you want to be sitting heading into the conference tournament. But it's not going to be an easy run. West Virginia's a very solid team. Darian DeVries has done a great job out there in year 1. He's going to have his guys ready to go. So it's now or never for Cincinnati, but they got to find that momentum, and it's going to be interesting to see how do they respond after the tough loss at Iowa State.
Yeah, Rayvon Griffith has not scored a point since that outing against West Virginia. Has played a combined 7 minutes in the past 3 games. So I don't know how much you could rely on him. Tyler Betsy is who I'm looking at. Tyler Betsy, Wes Miller has said he is going to play a major role at some point in conference play. No better time than now to help out an ailing brother in Simas Lukosius, who I'm sure is going to try to give it a go if he's able to. But, I mean, an injury like that, he may still be feeling it on Wednesday, even if he can give it a go, and might just be a decoy on the floor for Cincinnati and not taking a bunch of shots. Defensively for Cincinnati, Javon Small. Can they slow down Javon Small and not let him dictate the pace of this basketball game like he did a couple of weeks ago? 19 points on just 6 of 14 shooting. But, Neil, he dished 9 assists. He had full control of the game throughout the entire contest. Is a guy who plays 30-plus minutes per game, is one of the heaviest minute players in the Big 12, leads the Big 12 with over 17 points per game, has a 27.5% usage rate, 6th highest in the Big 12. You got to force the ball out of his hands. You can't foul like you did on Saturday against a guy who has hit the 2nd most free throws in the conference so far this season. And you got to force someone besides him to take a bunch of threes. You got to force the ball out of his hands, and you got to force the other West Virginia Mountaineers to take threes, something they have struggled to do even with factoring in Javon Small's shooting this year. They're at just 30.3% from outside in conference play. That's 13th in the Big 12. Force them to shoot threes, keep the fouls to a minimum, which Cincinnati has been able to largely do outside of the loss to Iowa State, and they should have a decent chance to win this, but they're 1-6 as an underdog this season. Only win against UCF. Neil, a UCF team that you and I know, like, that's not a good basketball team. They just lost by 13 to Colorado and gave up like 50-plus rebounds to the Colorado Buffaloes, a Buffalo team that is also a bad basketball team. So to me, until this team proves to me that they can go on the road and beat a good basketball team, I'm not going to pick them to do it. 68-67 victory for the West Virginia Mountaineers, and they drive a stake through the heart of the Bearcats' hopes of making the NCAA tournament as an at-large team. What do you got, Neil, for your score prediction and defensive storyline?
Yeah, defensive storyline. You talk about it. Defend the three ball. West Virginia shot 50% from behind the arc in the first matchup, with 8 of their 9 made three-pointers coming from Joseph Yusefu and Javon Small. Make them shoot the three ball. Obviously, you don't want to just say, hey, Javon Small, shoot this three real quick. But you have to find ways to be aggressive and defend the three-point line. Make West Virginia beat you in the paint. That's simply the matchup here. So it's going to be interesting to see how does Cincinnati's defensive scheme comes out, especially if they do play a little bit smaller, if AP is unable to go. So overall, it's going to be interesting to see, but they gotta run West Virginia off the three-point line. If they can keep West Virginia to shooting under 30% from behind the arc, this is a game where they should win. But for me, Russ, I'm still rolling with the Bearcats here. I'm going to go 69-66 in favor of Cincinnati.
That'll do it for today's Bearcat Blitz. Big thank you to Katrina Merriweather, and a fun time going over the Bearcats basketball results and predictions for Wednesday against West Virginia. We'll be back at it later in the week to recap that and see where Cincinnati stands on its path towards an at-large bid towards the 2025 NCAA tournament. For Neil Meyer and Russ Heltman, this has been Bearcat Blitz presented by Bet Online.
This is the second. 15 seconds left. Shot clock off. 4-point game. DeJulius puts up a three.